You're listening to episode 302 of the Major Issues Podcast. And on this episode, since everyone's talking about the release of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, we thought it'd be time to recap Marvel's Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Miles Morales. The Major Issues Podcast starts right now. Hello everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason. That's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you each and every week by ComicBookClique.com. But as you know, I am never alone. I would like to introduce my guest at this time, making his debut on the Major Issues Podcast. My boy All-Star Asa is in the building. Tell the people how you feeling.
Oh, doing great. How about you guys?
I mean, listen, bro, we know what we're here to talk about, and this is the reason why I've been in such a good mood for like the past week. Everybody is talking about the release of probably one of the most highly anticipated sequels of a video game. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is out. I have sunk in so many hours into it without even getting into the story mode yet. I know you are an avid fan of not only this most recent game, but the series. I guess for the people out there, give a little background on yourself, gaming, and how you found Spider-Man in general.
Well, it's kind of the same way with comic books as or in any comic book entertainment. When I was little, we grew up really poor, so I didn't have access to a lot of comic books. Okay. But I did get an Xbox, and I got this game called Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah.
And it expanded everything. If that was I was probably like 10 years old, and this game blew up the world to me. And then so from that moment on, I've kind of, anytime I have the opportunity to play a video game or, read a comic, which is not as often as I would like there, I just jumped into it. And that was kind of the kicker of it all. Then Spider-Man, you got Tobey Maguire in 2002?
2000? Yep.
Yeah. That was kind of the catalyst to start the Spider-Man train, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I say, because we've done a lot of episodes of podcasts, covered a lot of movies, TV shows, video games. One of the things that I think Spider-Man encapsulates that some heroes don't is he always seems to for the most part, seems to have fun being Spider-Man, right? Like, yes. Batman's kind of like, he's kind of dredging it. And, in some of the more modern Superman iterations, he's stressing it because people don't even like him. But Spidey, for the most part, even though he knows they're trashing him in the Daily Bugle, even though he knows that certain people are not down with the whole mask thing, there's a joy in his crime fighting, and it can be as little as saving a cat from a tree, and as big as taking down an entire crime, syndicate. Did you have a lot of expectations for that first Spider-Man game when it was announced for PlayStation? Well, I mean, obviously not the first Spider-Man game, because PlayStation has put out a ton, including things like Web of Shadows, Shadow Dimensions, stuff like that. But the big thing was this PlayStation 4 Spider-Man, so big, it got its own custom PlayStation. Do you remember that time period at all?
Oh, I do. Once I was a manager at GameStop, and that was like the time. Right. Like never. It's rarely ever like fun to work there, but that was like, it was fun to work there. All the comic nerds are coming and talking about it. Gamers are talking about it, especially a lot of the old school, like Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2 is the best one ever.
Yeah.
That was kind of where we were all at. We were all at a 15-year-old game that we loved until you started playing this one. Going up against Fisk, that first fight, like, oh man, like this is fantastic. Just learning how to web sling. Like it made you feel like you were actually web slinging. It was the best. Oh man. Yeah,
I'm telling you. Even with this recent one, which we'll do a spoiler-free review once we're done doing our recap of how we even got here. But even when I played Marvel Spider-Man 2, it kind of very similar to its predecessors, thrusts you into the action, and it just gives you that little line: press R2 to swing, and it's up to you to just, once you press that button, the game's in your hands at that point. You have been watching almost a mini movie, and then they just throw you in the middle of all this adventure. And when I saw that line, I smiled because I'm like, like riding a bike again. We're back to doing it.
No, we're
I
definitely back.
also, I was also looking for something a bit comparable to the Rockstar Batman series. Is it Rocksteady?
Rocksteady.
Steady? Rocksteady.
So
I think I'm saying that
I think
right.
I'm close to that. Rockstar is GTA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. The Arkham series.
yes,
I
that
was a huge fan of the Arkham series, and I love Batman and Spider-Man. So I was kind of looking for something comparable in that because the Arkham series to me was incredibly expansive when you consider what comic book games were at the time, which
oh
really
yeah, for sure.
was back in the day. It would just be like Batman the movie, the game, right? Like it would just be like a weird take on the film of a random aside, and that'd be kind of it. Whereas this, not as Arkham, not only did it bring in a bunch of missions and villains and all kinds of stuff like that, but it wasn't ever trying to adapt a singular Batman um image or iteration. Like the Spider-Man game that we have has unique Doctor Octopus, has a unique Norman Osborn. Like the characters, they had to almost make characters from scratch
Yeah.
here, based on fan favorites and stuff. Um, were you a day one Spider-Man? Did you buy it day
Oh,
one?
I
That first one?
had the first one I had. I actually got a code.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I had the code 48 hours ahead. I could only play it when I got off of the internet because because I was like embargoed, I think is the word, because they
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
sued
yeah.
me.
Right, right,
So,
right.
I think I had it platinumed, man, probably within 72 hours.
Golly.
It was I took days off to play that game. Like it was, oh my god.
Did you know already that you were gonna take the days off to play it, or was it like this is, what, I've got to call in because this is taking up a bit of my time.
It was more of a hey, I'll take that Saturday if you give me Friday. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah. Always willing and dealing, bro. We always got to be willing and dealing at these
hey,
times.
GameStop. Uh,
Yeah, I was on the outside looking in and looking in very angrily because I had made a vow once I got my Xbox 360. I was an Xbox guy, bro. I was gonna be an Xbox guy through and through. And then I had the Xbox One, and then y'all got Spider-Man, and I sat there and I fumed. And I'm like, they're really not gonna give one for Xbox? Nope, we're just staying there. So I would just go back and play Arkham Knight again, or I'd go back and play Arkham City, et cetera, and so forth. And then when they announced Miles, I said, I need to get my hands on a PlayStation and I want both of those games. I'm tired of lying to myself. I want to get them both. And luckily they re-released the first one. They remastered it for the PlayStation 5. It just so happens that the console I wanted to get to play these games that I haven't played was the hardest console to ever get in the history of freaking consoles.
makes sense.
So I had to like get a bundle with games I didn't want. I ended up like I'm selling them on Facebook Marketplace. It was a whole thing. Um, but yeah, we're here to recap and the events from that first Spider-Man game. We'll go into a bit of Miles and then we'll end with a bit of Marvel Spider-Man 2. I know my man Asa here has taken some diligent notes. So let's go through the adventures and we'll just pause whenever we feel like it and kind of talk about what we thought about those moments coming. If you've gotten this far and you haven't played any of these games and you don't want to know what happens in them, we love you and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna kind of be a love fest. I don't think there's anyone on this podcast that particularly hates this game. So yeah, I'm
No
ready to
good
get in it.
taste.
Yeah, no one will get to you hear this, right? No one will get taste. So yeah, whenever you're ready, bro, we can go ahead and get into the adventures of Marvel's Spider-Man.
Oh, for sure. All right. Well, we start off right out the gate. Kind of just get the Peter Parker getting the phone call. Oh, hey, we're taking down Fisk. Do you want in? And then you swing down and you can almost feel the wind, hitting the side of your
Yeah.
mask as you go through. You hear the police sirens. Just kind of build all that rush to this is it. Like it's Fisk.
Yeah, the
And
sense of
anybody.
urgency is there early. Early.
Yeah.
Everything is urgent. Yeah.
And then just kind of going ahead, kind of getting through all the goons, and like most of those the games with the like Arkham, or how you always beat up all the poor the poor
Yeah,
guys that
the goons that they're getting paid minimum wage, they don't know what's going on.
they got no benefits or nothing.
Yeah. Is this
You know,
this Fisk is also another like mafioso Fisk? Like I feel like we hadn't gotten a lot of like hey oh hey kind of Fisks. Like they've all been kind of like vaguely European, like the animated series one. Like I don't know where that guy's from, but I think this one's a bit hey oh Spider-Man kind of like the Kingpin in Into the Spider-Verse.
yeah. And then just going head up against him, and like just seeing how powerful Kingpin is, especially compared to Spider-Man. We think he's just a dude, you know.
Yeah.
And then going head to head, and once you beat him, and he gives you that just you wait. Once that you've taken me down, someone bigger is gonna come along. Just wait.
And you're
That
like, who? Come
yeah,
on. Yeah,
right.
whatever you say, guy. Don't drop the soap, Fisk.
But so that for me that was like the perfect setup to the game. The foreshadowing. Like, oh, just wait.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like a lot of the marketing really was like Mr. Negative. So for
Right.
me, I was waiting for Mr. Negative to appear, but it's almost like he didn't. He was very hidden well. But anyway, I'm getting too far ahead of myself.
No, you're good. You're good. What I
Uh,
want to say about Fisk is that I think Fisk is a fairly safe first villain in the sense that I think most people know him if you're a Spider-Man
mhm,
fan. And when I was growing up, I was watching a lot of Spider-Man the animated series, and he's pictured as the big bad in that. So
mhm.
the idea of beating the big bad in the first battle, and now what, was real big for me because I was like, I'm very interested in seeing where the story goes. And I like that you brought up, you got to see how strong he is. Not only is he super strong, but you're playing for the first time. So he's walloping you because you don't know. You're learning the response and stuff like that. You're learning how to dodge. And he's just like tossing you across the room and, throwing furniture at you. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. And then but then you kind of get the it goes back to normal Peter, and you're back in the lab, and you work for your idol, Dr. Otto Octavius.
Yep.
That clear setup, but like he seems so friendly, so nice, like and
It's the
you kind of
Titanic, right? Like,
yes.
this ship is called the Titanic. There's only one thing that this does, bro. I know where this story goes. And similarly with Octavius, I'm like, all right. Like I see you now, kindly mentor Octavius. We'll see where this goes. What do you think of the look?
Of Octavius's look.
Yeah.
Um, it he kind of reminded me of like like have the nicest way to say it is guy who peaked in smart guy college.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you as you find out, like him and Norman were kind of like they were like roommates, and they were kind of rivals, and everyone knows about Oscorp. You know about
Yep.
Spider-Man, you know about Oscorp. But and then so it's kind of like Walter White in Breaking Bad, like
Yeah.
very jealous of his best friend who made it, when now he's just working with some lowly smart kid, and some grant funded lab that
Basically
and
begging for money, right? Like
for sure.
if you're getting for grants and stuff like that, it means you can't fund it on your own. Also, little note for our listeners: if you ever partner up with somebody on a company, don't name it after one of you guys. It should have been like Oz and Auto Corp or something like that. He was like, oh, we'll just do an Oz Corp. Don't worry about it.
was
You ain't got nothing to
O's
worry about.
Corp is what
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like,
There you go. I like that. I like that.
but but being in the lab though, one of the favorite things, like if you just kind of look around the lab and you just
Mhm.
kind of because you can kind of do like the zoom in feature and kind of read all the small things, get all the Easter eggs. You find out pretty quickly that he has a disease, but they don't
Right.
really talk about it yet. It's just kind of like, oh, something's going on with him. A lot of medical stuff going on, you know. And that made you kind of go like, oh, like I wonder what's going on.
Right.
But you know, and then what we know, but for people that aren't nerds, had no
Yeah,
idea.
because all we know at this time is that his goal is to make prosthetics. We know that
Yes.
he's trying to work in robotics. He's trying to do like a Neuralink thing, a little chip in the back of your, a little chip in the back, unprotected chip in the back of your head. Don't
Mm-hmm.
worry, nothing's ever gonna touch it. And he needs Peter's help early on, and Peter not only is helpful but seems to enjoy helping Otto. They seem to have a good mentor-mentee partnership, which is something I hadn't seen before. Besides the Spider-Man 2, the whole like read poetry to her thing. But yeah.
Yeah. But then right after you kind of meet the human side of Peter, you're back in Spider-Man, and you're thwarting a bank heist from the
Yeah.
Shocker. So I mean, out the gate, you've already have three major villains, and you've only really you know of two for sure.
Right.
So like it made it really like I don't know, just the idea that they're just throwing in part of the rogues gallery. Like, oh, just
Yeah.
a normal occurrence. Shocker holding things up, Fisk getting arrested.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the game in many ways. There are elements of this game that allow you to explore the open world, but
mhm.
I think there's a lot of people that didn't realize how rich Spider-Man's world is, to the point that I feel like they packed it to the brim in this game and still had more for the Miles and still had more for the game that we're talking about, and they have even more left in the bag to do
Yes.
more in the future. I forgot how, and I think that's why the Arkham series works as well. Both of those um, universes are extremely interesting. The characters, both on the good and bad side, are extremely fleshed out. Probably the most fleshed out in majority of comic book material. No one has a rogues gallery like Batman or Spider Man. I would argue that they probably have the best rogues gallery of their respective companies.
Oh, for sure. I I can't even think of a comparison for anyone else.
Yeah,
Um,
and then those guys are so bad they mess with other people.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like
Yeah.
maybe Daredevil, maybe
Yeah, yeah, Daredevil's pretty good. Daredevil's pretty good.
um, but so then it kind of they introduce Mary Jane shortly thereafter. You know, like you during a was it a mission to gather information.
Yes.
You run into her as she's broke into a random museum, because
Yep.
she's also on a fact finding mission, just a different version.
Right.
Um, and you find out kind of through a little bit of a conversation between them that their relationship had already been since past, and it's
Right.
over. And that's very sad. Um,
Is that the Stan Lee moment? Is that the Stan Lee cameo moment?
I believe after they get out, when they're like, let's go meet at the usual place, and I think
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe the comment is like, I always liked them together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my biggest gripe is we didn't get a Gwen Stacy either. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig it. I dig it. Mary Jane ends up being a huge part of that game. She
Mhm.
is a playable character. She has her own missions. People are on both sides of whether or not that's a good or bad thing. Where do you sit on the Mary Jane mini mission scale?
At the time, I was very frustrated that I couldn't be Spider-Man.
Right. The guy with
Always.
all the powers.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just some random lady, not random, but I'm
Yeah.
just some lady
Yeah.
who is not. I'm not gonna fight anybody. Um, when I went back and played it when the PS5 came out, and when Miles came out, and I wanted to kind of refresh my memory, I enjoyed it as a break in the action, but
Interesting.
it kind of made it go like, oh, okay, let me take it's the break before dessert, like, oh, I'm just taking a breather, and then we'll get back to it. And so
Right.
it kind of made it more palatable.
I can see that. Totally.
Um, but yeah, so then as you guys are in this heist, you come across all these they're called demons, um,
Right.
with various powers, swordsmen, kind of like ninjas. They're Yakuza ninjas, in the best way possible.
I love
And
their design. The inner demons, I think, look really, really, really cool. And what a cool name, because the idea, spoiler alert, is they work for Mr. Negative, and Mr. Negative pulls the negative side out of you,
Mhm.
almost like it was always in there, almost like you always had an inner demon. So the idea that the inner demons work for Mr. Negative, uh, cool branding, bro, is what I'll say.
No, for
Cool
sure.
branding overall, Mr. Negative. I want to give you that compliment.
Um, so from there, you kind of have a lot. I would say my biggest issue at this point in the game is sometimes some of these things seem like fetch quests. Take this
Yes.
mask over here, go over here and do that. For me, I didn't mind it as much because then they introduced all the collectibles you can get, all the backpack, all the photo things for like tokens to upgrade Spider-Man and stuff. So it
Yeah.
kind of made it feel again. It was like, oh, okay, and I can do the things that I probably need to do to expand Spider-Man while I'm doing these things I don't necessarily enjoy doing.
Right.
But then
And it's
also,
not. And it's also not like you're walking mission to mission, right?
no, yeah,
That's
yeah,
also, I think, adds to the fun a bit. And
yeah.
now you're just web slinging through the city.
But as someone who's never been in New York City,
Hmm.
I felt as I'm web slinging, like, oh, if it's any better, if it's anything like this, obviously the walking part, not the web slinging part.
Right.
Um,
Right.
uh, I mean, one, phenomenal design work, like for the
Yeah.
developer. But two, like New York looks cool as hell, man. But
Yeah.
again, never
Yeah.
been. Uh,
Born and raised, but when I purchased this game, I had just moved to Florida. So now I'm in the city. The sun is cresting over Empire State Building, and I'm like, they've done it. This is all. This is all I wanted and more. I went to go look for places I knew like Madison Square Garden, and it's all there. They might make some buildings look more generic, like they can't put like the branding of McDonald's or
yeah.
whatever. But like the big stuff that I wanted to see if it was there is there. I'm actually born in Brooklyn, so that changes. When the Miles stuff comes, and even with Marvel Spider-Man 2, where I'm like, like towns and stuff that gets named. Spider-Man made New York cooler. Some people think New York is cool, but I mean, it got way cooler when Spider-Man started whipping all over the place. So yeah.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a blast. Um, but so kind of getting rid of the after the fetch quest, you do have a part where you go into feast, which was, from my understanding, was created strictly for this game. I don't think it's any other comics up until
I,
this
I
point.
I know that it does end up coming into the comics, but I will get you a date for that because I'm not 100% sure. I know I heard about it first here, but I wasn't
Yeah.
reading Spider-Man comics at this point. It got very confusing. I would end up going back to go grab up Miles and Spider-Gwen and etc. But yeah, let me see. So apparently it debuted in the comics in January of 2008.
Oh, so I'm way off
Um,
then.
but yeah, I don't even know. So according to this, on its surface, Feast was a charity to help homeless and underprivileged, but in reality, it was a front for Mr. Negative's criminal activities and a base of operations for the inner demons. So this must have been the beginning. Gosh, Amazing Spider-Man 546. Could you imagine
Jeez.
reading up until that point? Um, so yeah, this was something that was created in the comics, but that they completely flesh out for this. I like the idea of Aunt May doing something.
Mhm.
I like Feast as something that she does because ultimately with characters like Superman, right? The idea is that he is a good person, but he's a good person because he was raised by good people,
Mhm.
ultimately. And you often hear about like the old, wisdom from Ben and stuff, but May should do something more. And I like her in this situation doing something more. What did you think of Feast as a location and the introduction? I think that's coming soon of Martin Lee.
I really liked it. Like I've done my best to avoid being in homeless shelters.
Right, right. Good work.
Personally,
Good work.
uh,
Yes, yes, yes.
but it kind of it 'cause I believe it was it kind of like in a school gymnasium. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
how it looked to me, and
Yep.
so how it kind of area sectioned off. Especially as Peter walks through and he's like, "Hey, Mister Whoever,
Yeah.
Cole, and chest move," and like that guy's just grumpy, and like it was really cool how like they it made it felt very homey. Like Peter walked in, and he was kind of at home.
Yeah.
That's probably gets evicted a lot for
Yeah.
not paying
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
but like,
That's true. Yeah.
but
I remember Spider-Man. Rent. I remember that. I remember all that.
it just he seemed like like it felt very much like a big family. Just out
Yes.
the gate for me. And then you had Aunt May who's like, "Oh, you can sleep on my couch. It's no big deal." You know, poor
Right.
Peter. um,
Also showing in a little ways you could be heroic without
yeah,
webs and other stuff like that. I think that's also a interesting aspect of this is, Peter goes from saving, a couple people in like almost a thankless kind of way because no one knows who he is, and then he goes to a place where his aunt openly is giving out beds, giving out food, all that kind of stuff. It is the ascension that will lead to some very heartbreaking, going down. But I'm right now the roller coaster is ticking, and I'm having fun.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So then after we kind of you meet Martin Lee in Feast, and you bring him a mask that you had gotten in the heist with Mary Jane, because he's memory serves me, he's an art history guy,
Yes,
and
yes, yes, yes.
so he would know about this random mask from this random place, of course. Why wouldn't he? And so Mr. Lee gets real defensive, like, "Oh no, don't mess with them, they're dangerous." Real cut and dry, don't mess with them, because everyone listens in comic books things.
Right, of
Um,
course.
um, but so then as you kind of explore, you kind of start to see that sorry for spoiler number one, that
Dun dun
that Martin
dun.
Lee is in fact Mr. Negative.
Right,
And that you quickly find out how much he hates Norman Osborn.
right.
Um, you
And
know,
his front facing persona is incredibly generous, incredibly kind. People are a fan of him as a man. They believe that he's a good man doing good things. So Peter's trying to reconcile with a lot of the clues pointing in that direction, but he won't nail it until he is absolutely certain, especially when this man is kind of bankrolling the big organization that his aunt works at. It's a very um delicate situation on the ground.
but so during this point, you kind of realize how much Mr. Negative's group in the game has really taken over the power vacuum that was Kingpin's. He called it.
Yeah.
Um, and then but then can you kind of also go back to like the version where you're just Peter, and he goes back into the lab, and all the grants have been pulled, and Octavius is just begging Norman Osborn for money to fund his lab.
Yeah.
You can kind of see just the arrogance of Norman Osborn, who's kind of a prick,
Yes, he
truth be
is.
told.
Yeah.
We have to beep that out. I'm sorry. Um,
You're
um,
good. I think that's something most people share. They should have
and
gave him Defoe's voice though, right? Yeah,
oh yeah.
aim for the heart.
um, and then so then you see like just like how much he hates him, how much disdain he has, and then he kind of that's when you find out that they were in college roommates and they were rivals or whatever.
Mhm.
But you also learn in that moment where Octavius finally tells you about the disease. It's a
Right.
neurological disorder where he
Mhm.
is losing control of his limbs. And so it
Yes.
kind of explains, oh, this is exactly why we wanted prosthetic. This is the driving point of all the research.
Yeah.
Especially when you come in as Peter and you kind of do the little mini games where you take over and you're helping break through chemicals and you're helping,
Circuits and all kinds of
yes.
stuff. Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, that was really cool too. Like some of my favorite parts about being Peter, like learn. I mean, obviously engineering's not like that, but I like to think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's like, oh, I solved the whole thing. Look at
Yeah,
that. I
I can
lit the whole
change the
city up.
world. Like,
That's all,
I
that's
can
all I'm
be the
talking
world's
about.
Spider-Man. Um,
That's what makes the prosthetic thing a bit more tragic, right? Like it's already altruistic. If he's able to get this grant, he's able to make it work. He can help so many people. But it's
mhm.
also this idea that he's kind of creating his own solution, his own help for himself. And ultimately, that the fate of him being able to be a normal person lies in the hands of the one man. He can't stand to ask for anything. He can't stand to, face the fact that he would need his help. It's all twisted. It's all, but it's all great. They laid this out perfectly. None of this felt like it came out of nowhere or that they just put these guys at odds to be at odds. Like all the math tracks, the breadcrumbs lead exactly where they're supposed to.
Which leads us to a giant celebration day to where a police officer, I'm gonna butcher. Is it Jefferson Davis? Is that Jackson?
Yep,
Okay,
100%. Yep, yep.
okay. Where he is getting an award for the city
Hmm.
because of work he and Spider-Man had done as a side mission in the game that you kind of
Yeah,
have to do. Um, and then so he's getting this big award. It's really, really exciting. You actually get to meet a young Miles Morales. He's probably 14, 15.
yeah. Did alarm
And
bells
then
go off in your head when that happened?
for me, I started smiling. Oh, finally. And then so from there, you can kind of just tell something bad's gonna happen. Nothing bad happens, or nothing good happens at a celebration. Anything Spider-Man.
Yeah,
And so as they're getting him the award, the inner demons attack. And Officer Davis is actually killed by a suicide bomber, um, which was hard. Especially as I think at this point, Miles is close and you kind of take over as Miles and you're just walking through the downed building just looking for find your dad, and you have to kind of like hide from the demons, and if they see you it's like one of those like
oh,
game
they gun
over.
you down. Hey, I remember when that first happened. I was like, "Damn, okay, I won't be spotted." All right, you made your point.
Yeah. Oh no, it was sorry, I looked at my notes. It was a re-election campaign and he was honoring Officer Davis. It wasn't like a thing.
Right, right.
Oh, sorry.
No, but then and like if you go to replay that now, all you get is echoes of Across the Spider Verse, right? Like
Mm,
Jefferson Davis has to die.
oh
He's
my
faded.
god.
It's coming to happen. It's like son of a bitch. It's canon timeline, man. It's canon event. Can't stop it.
But this is when Spider-Man confronts Mr. Negative the first time. You have that real fight. It kind of goes into the classic video game cliche of you're fighting inside your guy's brain and you're
Yeah,
fighting for your sanity. He's fighting to take it over. Um, but you
I think Pete.
obviously
I think
win.
Pete underestimates him a little bit.
Oh, for sure. He's like, oh, he's just some dude. And then then you see. I would say the coolest part about this part in the game was the graphically, like how
Yeah,
they had just the parts that were the inverted colors, and then it just wrecked your world.
yeah,
Even in the game when
100%.
you're fighting the demons themselves, they would just wreck your world if you got hit by their beams. Um, so then like after this sequence, it cuts forward to his funeral, Officer Davis' funeral, and then Peter goes up to Miles and he says, "Hey, that classic. I know where I know what you're feeling. If you need anything, please reach out."
Yeah,
Which is always the right thing to hear at a funeral.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
I just love that. I mean, eventually, I believe it's Rio who will like kind of push him towards Feast. Similarly, Miles should be doing something, where
yeah,
he is, where he's getting his good karma. You know, especially
Yeah.
in a time like this, you want to be busy. You want to be helping people. Help is other people. Sometimes when you feel like you need help, when you feel like you're struggling eternally, help someone else. And all of a sudden you'll find your usefulness. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes it's just about helping one other person. And it's got to suck even more to not be able to fully empathize, like mask off, right? With
Yeah.
Miles in that moment. I know later on they've got to had to have some conversations. But like in that moment, it's like, oh no, I can see you and me, and I can't tell you exactly why. I know that things are gonna get better, but just trust me. You know, that's gotta be rough.
Um, well, the best part was like during the whole all the Miles working at Feast is when I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember what exactly happened, but when Mary Jane brings the box into the Feast and it has
Right.
the other spider, and then
Yeah.
Miles gets bit, and
Yeah. Yep.
then it goes to a different part of the game completely. It's like, oh, he's
Yep.
bit.
It's
Let's
like,
do
don't worry
something
about
else.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We'll get back to that in a second.
Um, and then so during this port, oh no, what it was Mr. Lee stole the bioweapon.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have the Devil's
Devil's
Breath.
breath.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think
Um,
initially was supposed to be like an inoculation kind of thing, like it was supposed to help people, but it ended
mhm.
up coming up with like 100% death rate or something, and they're like, we'll just shelve this. We'll put this in the corner there.
But so Mr. Lee goes for it, and gets stopped by by Spider-Man. The good guy finally wins, of course. But then you kind of see like in a side. Oh my goodness, what
Like a
is the
cutscene.
word? There you go. That's the word. Um, you see Doc Ock's with the arms. You see the mechanical arms coming, and you know something's about to happen. And
Is that
then
also the strength test where he's like, "Look
yes,
what I can do! I can destroy concrete." And you're like, again, like you're somebody who knows the story is like the person saying yes, and this ship is unsinkable. You know, I call it the Titanic. It's like, oh, you're just this is. I know how the story goes, man. He's like, it's not only I only wanted it to be able to replicate my arms and my power, but now I've duplicated my power and speed. I'm like, I don't know why that would be useful. What are you trying to? What are you getting up to over there, Otto?
well, the problem was the strength test was him breaking into the raft. Like
Oh
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, it works. 5 out of 5 stars.
yeah. Like so, he broke into the best prison in New York,
Yep,
and he
biggest prison in New
released
York.
and set up the game for the Sinister Six. And it's like a
Yes.
really fun, like, oh, we get that game. That's not what I expected at all.
No.
Um, and then so Spider-Man goes to fight. He actually goes up against them all individually, and he's not winning by any stretch of the word, but he's holding his own until Doctor
Surviving. Yeah.
Octopus shows up and just beats the brakes off that man, leaves him for
Yeah.
dead in the harbor. Um,
What did you think of the wrinkle that initially? And I remember like at the time, like my jaw dropped. I don't even know why. You get so in the mask, you kind of become Peter at certain points.
yes,
And there's a moment in which you're working on your spider gear, and Ox shows up. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" You're like, and he's like, "Oh, obviously, I know exactly what you're doing. You work for Spider-Man." You're like, "Yeah, that's what I do." What did you think about that whole charade of like, "Oh, I'm not, I'm just working for the man. I'm, his tech guy."
I remember thinking it was like like what a coincidence.
Yeah,
Like what are the chances that he's just like because the whole game portrays him as like he's probably the smartest guy they're going like but more than Osborn, even more than Peter. Like
yeah,
so like to think that he wouldn't put that together like
right,
is it kind of feels a little far-fetched. Almost like, listen, you're embarrassed, you don't want to talk about it, but I know that I
right,
know,
right. Yeah,
but I thought it was a fun wrinkle. Like it was that also made me kind of go like, well, Ox gotta know,
yeah,
So like, at what point, especially during this scene, you're kind of thinking like, is he gonna hold back? Like, come on, your
right.
boy, like
Yeah, yeah,
that's your boy, like. Um.
100%.
So that was probably one of my favorite like twists was as you're once you see him as the sixth person It made
Mhm.
the whole game go, oh, we're getting like we're getting the whole full blown Sinister Six game.
Yeah,
Which
and also no more redemption for Otto. Like
no, for
with
sure.
him choosing to cross this line, he knows he's now a villain. He knows that this is scorched earth at this point. No one's gonna see his point and be like, "Oh no, yeah, you're 100% right with those mechanical arms and hanging out with the electricity guy and the Rhino dude." Like no one's gonna sympathize with him. And it's such a drastic turn that I think it does work to pull the heartstrings. It even knowing that it was gonna go there, the deterioration of their friendship, their respect,
Yeah.
or whatever you'd want to call it, it still affected me. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I know he goes bad, he's gonna go bad. There are tender moments of trust. There's tender moments of advice, of empathizing with one another. Like I said about the disease, helping out with the spider tech, all that kind of stuff. They were partners. So when it gets down to this moment, even though you know it's coming, it's tremendous.
It almost made it worse. I mean, losing a mentor sucks, but like having a mentor turn on you, I couldn't even
By
imagine.
choice, right? Like
Yes.
by choice, making the choice. Yeah, that's huge.
But so when he leaves you dead, leaves him in the water, and then he goes to Times Square and he releases Devil's Breath over New York City, so essentially
Right.
infecting all of New York with the plague. Um, but we find out almost instantaneously that there is a singular cure
Of course.
in Oscorp.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because
and then
they do the classic comic book movie villain third act trope of like, I've got this device and this device will shoot it into the atmosphere. So now we're just gonna put them both together and see what happens. I remember this happened with the lizard, right? I'm gonna make everyone into lizards. I'm gonna shoot the
yes,
lizard gas or whatever into the air, and then it'll turn everyone into lizards or whatever the heck. So I was like, oh yeah,
um,
classic, classic Spidey.
sorry, get my light on. Um,
You're good, brother.
so then we find out Norman Osborn has one, but he has now hired a bunch of mercenaries in the game, headed by Silver Sable.
Yep,
Uh,
yep. What a
uh,
looker.
oh, big fan. Um, and so during this part, she
Is this
actually
when
hates.
you're like in his house, in his office or whatever, and trying to
Yes.
like hide behind people and stuff? Yeah.
Oh, you're Mary Jane, and you're like
Oh, yes,
sneaking
yes,
through the
yes, yes, yes.
house. And this was my least favorite mission in the entire game because it was also probably the hardest, the most difficult to sneak
Yeah, it
through, to
was.
throw the thing, but then like for some reason Mary Jane's taser works on everyone immediately, and it makes
Yeah.
no noise whatsoever.
No. As
And
tasers are
she
known to
is
do.
yeah,
Famously, tasers are silent.
and yeah, and she is as quiet, if not more quiet, than Spider-Man. Like it makes zero sense.
No.
So,
Yeah,
so it does
absolutely.
kind of take you out of it a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it also here where we get the vague allusion to Harry? Like where there's like letters and like a painting or something like
yes,
that?
yeah, you find out that it wasn't just a he's not just in Europe as the game would lead you to believe. He's sick with something.
Yeah,
And
something
then,
major, like really, really, like you
yeah,
should be worried about him.
with the thing that killed his mom, but they haven't said it yet.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either. I
I
could be
don't.
wrong, but I
Yeah,
think they keep it vague on purpose.
yeah, for sure. Um, and then so at this point in the game, you guys break in, you get the antidote, the one antidote in the entire city,
Yep.
and then you have to find the guy or the doctor who can replicate it.
Yes.
Who is also under Oscorp's watch, under Sable's watch.
Right.
Um, and then also during all of this in the main story, you have all the branching stories of the Sinister Six are joining together in different parts of the city, and you have to go take them all down individually because
Yep.
now somehow the raft is fine again
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
almost being sank. It is a
Right.
comic
Right.
book.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and then so oh, let me get back to my notes. Give me 1 second.
You're
Okay.
good. You're good.
Um, so during one of the main story missions, you're going after Dr. Octopus again. and then you find an area featuring Martin Lee, and you find out that he only has the negative powers because of Norman Osborn, because
Right.
they were testing out the Devil's Breath on people, and Martin Lee happened to survive. Well, with disastrous consequences, of course. Killed
Yeah.
his parents, so he's built his whole life to taking down Osborn.
Yeah, he's been sharpening that axe, man. He's had an axe to grind to take down Osborn, which simultaneously is what Otto's trying to do. So they're like, "Hey, what's going on,
Yeah,
bro?"
good friends.
Yeah.
So in this point of the game, then you go back and you actually end up saving Norman Osborn alongside Silver Sable, who realizes you're not a complete jerk. You're standable.
Yeah.
Though I'm sure she still doesn't like Spider-Man. She can just
Yeah.
tolerate him a little bit.
Right, right. And that's all we can ask for.
And then as you go through some of the most fun fights I've ever had in gaming, I believe it was Rhino and the Scorpion.
Oh,
And
the
then
team ups, bro. Vulture
it
and
was
I can't
so
remember
much
the other
fun.
one. That was really, really cool.
And then
And
so as you
not for nothing, because you're getting better at the game as
oh
it's
for sure.
continuing. And as you're getting better at the game, your stats are getting better. So your strength is up, your speed is up. There's different elements of the suit that you're able to maximize. So like I felt smart beating them. I know that sounds very dumb.
Well, they're part of the Rogues Gallery. So it's like I should have beat
So I'm
them the
like,
whole time. It
right,
makes sense
right.
that I couldn't beat up Fisk at the gate. But yeah, I've been Spider-Man for 7 years at this point. I should be able to beat up Scorpion and Rhino
Yeah.
and whoever else. So you beat them all. You send them back to the raft, and then it comes down to you beat Dr. Lee, or you beat Martin Lee. You
Mhm.
go to see Aunt May, and you find out that she now has the plague that has been unleashed. So
Right.
it definitely gives you that life or death consequences now. Now you have to go fight Dr. Octopus. There's no, the story's
The
going
ticking
that way.
clock. Yeah.
Yeah. But not only is she sick, like she's clearly very sick. Like she's coughing up blood like most people. Like she's progressing much quicker than everyone else did.
Right.
And then so
The most cinematic symptom of sickness ever, coughing into a napkin and there being
for
blood
sure.
in it. That's how you know. Oh, it's goner.
And then so you have to go after Dr. Octopus.
Mr.
Oh no, sorry.
Octavius.
You go after him a first time. He goes after during your fight with Martin Lee, and he shows up after you've beaten Lee, and he just beats you to smithereens. Like if I remember right, like your suit's all torn, it's all beaten up. Like he's like, I don't know how
He's
to
able
beat
to
him.
like harness electricity with those. He's able to do like some pretty messed up stuff to your suit with his tech.
Yes.
Which I believe then leads you to have to craft your own anti-ock
Yeah.
suit, which looks pretty cool.
And then you have I'm gonna be honest, one of my favorite final fight scenes ever in a game was
Yeah.
or final or start not scenes, boss battles.
Yes, 100%.
Because you couldn't land, it's very tricky, but like it's not so tricky where it feels undoable or it doesn't feel
Right.
doable. It was a lot of fun. And
I think
then
it's like dark and storming, right? It's like like epic. Yeah.
And then you're and during the last fight with Lee, sorry, Octavius actually, after he beats you up, he takes the only cure you have. And so it's like, and then you find out Aunt May's sick. And so it's if you want to help anybody, including her, you have to fight him. And then so yeah, like you said,
Your mentor. Yeah, your mentor. Now it's no longer a choice. Like you were saying, like he could have been like, oh, guys, he's a bit crazy right now, but I think we can, put him in a corner. It's like, no, we have to stop him because people's lives are on the line.
So during this fight, as you win, eventually I believe you dismantled or you turn off two of the arms, and so you're fighting on the side of the building. And the way it's situated is like you're fighting up and down, but the way the camera is like you're looking straight forward. It was one of my favorite effects in the game too. Like overall,
yeah, really, it was really cool. Yeah,
and then so as you guys are fighting, and he tells you like he makes a comment. He says, "Peter, You've always been weak. Essentially, you couldn't do it. You couldn't. So you at this point, your mentor knows it's you and
Yeah.
chose to turn on you, and it's just so gut wrenching. The whole
Right.
fight.
Yeah.
And then so it's just you're just throwing blows, and it becomes very much not a Spider-Man fight, more of a boxing match.
Yeah.
Uh, and then as you crash down the building further, you get a blow and he falls through a window, messes up his octopus arms where he can no longer fight. Peter approaches him to take the cure and says, like, I'm sorry, Otto, I didn't want to do this. You kind of made me do it. And then Dr. Octopus then says something along the lines of, well, I know you do what you got to do, but I know your secret.
Yeah.
So if you don't want anyone to know your secret, you're gonna let me go. And then Peter says, my favorite thing in the whole series, you do what you think's best, and
Yeah.
walks away.
Yeah.
Power move.
Because he
Uh,
makes it seem like he's got him by the, I guess, the spider balls in that moment,
yeah.
and Peter knows what's really important. Like, come on, like that's the thing you're gonna leverage over me. It's either that or save a bunch of people's lives. Like,
Yeah.
chill out, bro.
Yeah.
I'll be okay.
I'll take the L.
Yeah,
I'll take the small L to get the big win.
100%.
Um,
And that's Spider-Man.
for sure. Yeah. Um, Peter goes back to the doctor, gives it to him. You see Aunt May coughing worse. And it's like, you can cure her now, or you can cure a bunch of people in a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then the
I
most
don't even
heart.
think it lets you choose. I don't think it lets you
No,
pick.
I'm gonna be honest. I would have picked Aunt May in a heartbeat. I'm so anti Aunt May.
Right.
And then so as he knows he can't do it, you have a moment with Aunt May, and she kind of just says, let me see my nephew's face, and it just makes it so much worse. And
Yeah.
then she's just like, I've known it's you for a long time. I love you. I couldn't be more proud of you and who you're becoming.
Right.
And then Peter, because it's Spider-Man, he's got to be depressing right now. He hugs
Right.
her, fades to black. Her heart monitor fades out,
Peeps out. Yeah.
and that's how the game ends.
And it's rough because, as we know, Peter already has a thankless job,
Mhm.
and he just went through great lengths to make sure other people's aunts stay alive, or that other people are alive to have aunts in the
Mhm.
first place. And yet he always ends up being the one to take the L. He always ends up being the one to, but he never sees it like that. There's never a why not me kind of situation with Spider-Man. He just
Yeah.
knows the cost of what he does there. And ending on that note made you realize how much was at stake.
Mhm.
Sometimes you are in a video game and you're literally fighting in the third act to save the world. And in many ways, Aunt May is his world, and he sacrificed that so other people can have theirs. Again, quintessential Spider-Man. Great story.
It's one of two very select games. I finished it as the credits rolled, and I
Mhm.
am sobbing uncontrollably.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because it
And
was
you don't
so.
get there without hours of being put in with playing Spider-Man as Spider-Man.
Yeah,
It's not a
yeah.
thing where like you meet a character in the beginning of a 2-hour film and then they die at the end. You've sunk in a lot of time. You are Peter. You are Peter. You're simultaneously getting groceries and fighting people in the street. You're trying to live both those lives. You're trying not to lose too much, and ultimately, you lose that. But I love that they gave him that tender moment, and then ultimately, like that was such a huge deal to me because I had never seen any Spider-Man media kill off Aunt May.
Mhm.
That was the very first thing I was like, oh my God, spoiler alert, No Way Home goes around and,
Yeah. Oh man.
and does it. And I'm like, I've seen this, like I know where this goes kind of stuff. Definitely heart wrenching. And again, a lot of this stuff in a worse written game wouldn't impact you. You'd be like, oh, well, that character's gone. That character's dead. But the betrayals, the heartbreak, all of that is apparent here. You even want MJ and Peter to get back together. Like you're even like trying to edge that thing to work out a little bit more. Sure, Black Cat's trying to kiss you occasionally in the background while you're trying to do this.
You know, like
yeah, that's got to be the most insidious part of this whole game. That whole like Peter may have a baby with Black Cat situation.
Yeah, that was the DLC.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, I'm like, do I got a kid? Are they saying we have a child? And then it's like, no, I ain't worry about it.
Yeah, she's like, oh no, I knew you'd do what I wanted you to do. I just figured the baby would make you feel like you had to do it. Like,
yeah.
Felicia Hardy, you hateful lady.
I'm putting the spotlight on you. Do you have a favorite suit? Bum bum bum.
Oh, I'm partial to Ben Reilly, so the Scarlet Spider. It's probably the one I use the most, or the story with the White Spider. Yeah, I think that was a really cool one. Especially that I initially rubbed up against the the PlayStation version when I first saw it. I was like, that's a lot of white, and the spider's very big. And then you play it, and he's like, yeah, he's one of everybody else. I do the other Scarlet Spider, the red and black, the Kane Parker one. I really, really like that one. Spider Punk, obviously, on occasion. Oh, for sure.
Even Spider-Man 2099 is fun, but my niece, who just started playing it not too long ago, likes to play as the bombastic bagman, the Fantastic Four with the paper bag on. Yeah. She thinks that's hilarious. So, and it's pretty fun to watch her run away from crimes because she doesn't want to interact with these people and their negativity. I can't blame her, but I mean, you might want to go save some of those people in the street. So much fun. I remember do you have some of those DLCs down there?
I did. I ran through it. I didn't love it. I'm glad it was a DLC and not part of the main game because it was kind of interesting because it started off as like the mob they're hitting each other and they're taking each other out, which is really cool as an idea, and then it goes so fantastic. Whereas again, spoilers. At the end, where did you play it? Where Hammerhead
is this a Tombstone? Oh, Hammerhead. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. It is Hammerhead. It is Hammerhead. Where he has like another mission that you do with Mary Jane.
A side mission. Where Hammerhead has like the giant mech body, and it was very.
Sable tried to take him out, right? Sable tried to kill him or something like that. So he comes up as a big. Yeah, I remember this now. Yeah. Like and then so Lex Luthor war suit kind of. Yeah.
We got a little too fantastic when like the game felt very grounded, but then it definitely becomes a fantasy game. Especially because I believe it's just his head, like it's his whole body is a mechanical thing, and just on a those are my favorite.
And he has a big ass head. That's why they call him.
Yeah, for sure. But then and with the cutscene, you find out that Peter and Mary Jane are getting back together, and then. And then as Miles Morales is moving into a new apartment, you see him go, "Hey, Peter, I got to show you something." And then he jumps up on the ceiling and you see him stick.
Cool.
And then Peter shows him and he's like, "I can do it too." And it makes it like, oh, like this is it finally. This is the
so cool. I really, really like the way that they did that. Because there's a lot of Spider-Man reveal scenes, like in animation movies, all that kind of stuff. I like that one. Similarly, I like the one in Amazing Spider-Man 1 where he's like trying to tell her, but he can't muster it and he just webs her. Like I like people showing the power and then people just be like, what? You're like, yeah, bro, Spider-Man. So that was really, really cool. I want to say really quickly before I forget, the music in this, very well done. Like I still like this is good. Goes down as one of my Spider-Man themes. Like when I played Marvel Spider-Man 2 and the music started coming up, like I got so nostalgic for something that wasn't even that long ago. Yeah. I just was so ready to be back in that world, So I wanted to shout out John Paisano, who is the composer for this series of games. I think he came up with a pretty cool motif and a pretty cool theme for this Spider-Man, and it was also really, really cool to see this Spider-Man. He popped up in, I want to say, it was Spider-Verse. If not Spider-Verse, it was definitely Spider-Geddon. But when they do like these multiversal, comic book events and they bring in all the Spider-Man, he showed up, and I
Oh,
think one of
really?
them was, yeah, he had a conversation with another Spider-Man about Avengers, and he's like, my Avengers seem to always be out of town. He's like,
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny.
He's like,
That's
yeah, bro,
funny.
you're on your own there. And he also got to cameo in Across the Spider-Verse, which
Yes.
came out this thing, and that was really really cool to see his little big white symbol. I was like, I know that one. So cool, really really cool stuff.
Did you to kind of turn it as in Spider-Man more was on me? Um, did you really enjoy Miles Morales? The I wouldn't call it a sequel, but I would not call it a sequel. Um,
It's like a what they
it's
call
like a
that, spin-off
continuance.
spin-off a
Spin-off.
little
There you
bit,
go.
spin-off. I liked it. I thought it was short.
Hmm.
I thought they went a little bit low hanging with the Tinkerer. I felt like they could have went a little bit more thing, but I would blame that on the truncated nature of that series, like the very shorter um version of it. I so now that I'm playing Marvel Spider-Man 2, like Miles is kind of a cheat. And I say that in the best way. I love him. But like electricity and invisibility and
For
all the
sure.
spider stuff, I got so hooked on doing that when I went back to play as Peter, I was like, oh, I gotta like really hide now. I have to, I can't, like I have to really be stealth. I can't just press a button and just tiptoe around somebody and punch them in the face.
Yeah.
So I like the additions. I like the story that they laid out. There was a couple issues, like I said again. I think they could have went a bit bigger, but this was, I guess, like we were just talking about, never really meant to be a solidified sequel. More so, a spin-off, a continuance of what we got from Marvel's Spider-Man One. What did you think about it?
I enjoy it. I agreed. It was a little short. My first run through was I had just replayed Spider-Man 2018, and
Hmm.
I found that I was really burned out on Spider-Man.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then so I put it down for about 2 months, and I came back to it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I the Tinker, yeah, it was a little on the nose
Right.
for me. I did like that once they kind of explained the rationale behind the Tinker, which was for anyone out there, it was Miles' childhood friend,
Yep.
um, who was also another. There's a lot of science geniuses in these
Yeah.
in Spider-Man, and they're all
Yeah.
like 12.
They
Every
were like
single
a 3-person science team, right? It was like it was
yes.
Finn, Miles, and I can't remember the.
Is it Genki? That or was it
No,
another
Genki's
person?
still alive. No, Genki's
Oh, that's right.
he's the man in the chair. I'll
Yes,
see if I can find what that other one was, because that third person is basically the point of contention, because
it
he
was her brother, her big brother, right?
right. Yeah, I want to say, why is this not coming up where I want it to? Boom, 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 boom. Uh, Let me see. Miles. Um, I also love the all the Bodega Cat stuff. That's great. Uh,
I
Bodega
forgot
Cat.
about that.
Yeah, Bodega Cat is great. Yeah, so it's Rick Mason, older brother,
Okay.
childhood friend. All three of them worked at Roxxon. Um, Miles, Finn, and well, sorry, I think the both Rick and Finn worked at Roxxon, and then Miles was their friend, childhood friend.
My favorite part of it was the Prowler part. Right?
Oh yeah,
We get to go
yeah.
up against the Prowler, and then all of the side quests for all the music, where he would like go through and find a spot and hear a sound. Like, oh, that's a cool
Oh
beat, and then you get to like
yeah.
pick a spot where there's like a certain sound, and it's like how the water hits a tin can in the ocean, and it's like these
Yeah,
really
yeah, a
specific
bunch of
things.
pigeons landing in the park or whatever. Like, I remember
Yeah.
because I was on that pigeon one for a hot minute. I'm like, what
Oh,
do
for
you want
sure.
me to capture? What is it that you want me to do?
Yeah, that was for me. That was it. Like that was like where I was like, oh man, this is really cool. Like plus like especially with like across the universe. I feel like Miles is super into music. Now I've
Yeah.
not familiar with him in the comics, other than there's like a
Mhm.
fun rivalry between him and Kamala Khan.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but so that's most of my comic book knowledge of Miles Morales is through Miss Marvel. Um,
Okay.
um, so like hearing him do all the music stuff, and then I really dig it. Plus, like I really like hip hop, So like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's trying to do it his own way, and I really appreciate that, so it makes it more fun.
I love his very unique web slinging style as opposed to
Mhm.
Peters. You've obviously played as Peters for hours, and then you play with him, and he's kind of a little bit more careless. Like he's swinging backwards, and his legs are all flailed out and stuff. Gave him a little bit of style and substance there. I love, again, as being a New Yorker, I love that the pause screen is just him on the train with his headphones in, and it's kind of playing like a
Mhm.
hip hop version of the Spider-Man theme. I thought that was really really cool. And yeah, you do get to flesh out that character more. What's interesting is that a brief history of Miles in the comics. Miles was basically an experiment. They create. I meant like in real life, in the sense
Yeah.
that people at the time were expressing and having an argument about whether or not Spider-Man needed to be white. And so people wrote full length articles about like that's not really a characteristic of him. He should be allowed to be any color, et cetera, so forth. Multiverse, whatever. So um, they ended up creating Miles, a black Spider-Man, in a universe where the OG Spider-Man died. The Spider-Man of that universe. So if you've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, it's very
Mhm.
similar to that, where
Yeah.
the universe that Miles exists in just lost its Spider-Man, causing him to have to rise up and take that spot. Now, the thing about that means is that majority of his early time Spider-Manning, there's no Peter. He's doing it on his own. He's learning it on his own. Eventually, we get Secret Wars, which is going to happen in the movies, which is this idea that all these multiversal worlds are going to crash into each other. And the end goal, once everything is done and they've saved the world, is that some people from those other universes are now stuck on our planet. So Miles from the Ultimate Universe gets stuck in our mainline universe and gets to meet Spider-Man, Kamala Khan, the
Yeah.
Avengers and stuff
Cool.
like that. But prior, he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Similar to Spider-Gwen. Like Spider-Gwen exists on another planet, another universe, but when she can on occasion come over because mainline 616 Gwen is dead, been
Yeah.
dead for years, kind of stuff.
Long time.
Um, yeah, long, long time. So I say all that to say that I think it's really interesting to watch a Miles being trained by Peter, because aside from Into the Spider Verse, which kind of threw in like a lackadaisical, right, a mentor
Mhm.
with Peter B. Parker, it was really cool to watch Miles learn from Peter in this instance. The beginning, having the wearing basically the Spider-Man suit with the knee pads, the red and blue and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
again being like, I get it, but get your suit on, bro. Get your suit on. And then I love that one of the suits in it is the Into the Spider Verse thing,
Mm.
which kind of drops the frame rate if you pick it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like janky, like animation. And then when you hit people, it says like "pow" and "boom" and
Oh,
and
does it
whatever.
really?
Yeah, you get the
Oh,
you get
I'll
the
play with that.
the
That's
voice bubbles. It's really fun stuff. Yeah,
but
trying to
yeah,
think of
so
Miles suits. I'm trying to think of suits in that Miles game. Obviously, Bodega Cat that
yeah.
comes up.
I don't remember. I think
He didn't have a lot.
I don't think I played it. I mean, I know I beat it and I know I platinumed it, but
Mm.
I think I platinumed it and then I walked away. And then before two came out, I was like, oh, let me kind of go back through and kind of run through it a little bit. And I started kind of replaying a little bit of it, just to
Mhm.
kind of get back in this, no pun intended, the swing of things. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I liked it. I remember going, oh, I really did enjoy this, but I honestly do not remember much of the game at all. Um,
Same. Same. I remember a lot of speedball challenges. That's that game, right?
oh
With
my god,
speedball.
yes. No,
I'm
I
almost.
think
I feel
I
like
think
it
so.
is. Yeah. I feel like I remember a lot of speedball challenges, and the thing, like, I love the fact that you're able to change so many suits in the game. But sometimes I look at certain suits and I'm like, why this one? Why is
Yeah.
this a thing? Like he has one where it's just him as Spider-Man, but he has a scarf and and a hat and earmuffs. You know,
It's cold,
there's
man.
another one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's another one where it's him as regular Spider-Man, but he has a blazer and a book bag. You know, like
Oh
that's
yeah.
a whole another suit. But yeah, I did like all the. I'm a sucker for a hood, even though it's absolutely impractical in crime fighting or any of
No, it
that
makes
kind of
no
stuff.
sense. But same.
Absolutely no sense. But yeah, they like to put Miles under a hood, and I like the way the hood looks sometimes.
Well,
Really,
and
really.
on the Spider-Man 2, some of the suits, I've both of mine. I'm using the cowls. I'm
Yeah,
using one. Yeah. So like I dig the cowl. Like yeah. No,
yeah,
it's
they look really cool. They look really really cool. Um, I so obviously I got my PlayStation for this game.
mhm.
Um, and I think that was the thing. I had just played I just had played regular Spider-Man, so I was expecting the same length, I guess, for this. The good thing, or I mean, not even the good thing, the absolute best thing, I'm playing the remastered version of Spider-Man, the first one, Marvel Spider-Man 1. And as this is happening, No Way Home is not too far.
Yes.
And they drop the No Way Home suits in the game. And I'm like, this, no. Like, no. Yeah, I'm about to, like, every MCU Spider-Man suit is in that game.
Yeah.
Every single one. You know, and mind you, one of my favorite Spider-Man suits is the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. That's the one without the yellow eyes. It looks
Okay.
basically like the OG Spider-Man suit. It was the closest we had gotten to like a bright white eyes, and the
Doesn't
red
it
and
have a
blue. But they all
really tiny spider on the cover or on the?
skinny, really thin,
Okay, that's it. Okay.
really thin legs. They go very very long. Um, they didn't have the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit in the first game. They have it in this one now, so I
Yes.
have that one. I have that one on lock. Um, but yeah, just the customization of it, like super super cool. And then the idea that each one of those suits, for the most part, comes with an ability. Like that was really really cool. I liked having the spider bot kill people while I did other things. Like go ahead and shoot those things. Were there any missions you were better at than others when you think about it?
Um, I
I'll give you
really
time to
like
think.
the.
I'm not good at traversal. I'm not good at
Oh,
like go through this hoop and then jump through that hoop, and
like
you need to do
chasing
it all in
the
30 seconds.
pigeons.
I remember
Um,
that. That's Miles, right?
yeah, it's Miles. You chase the individual pigeons. Yeah. Um, I
What a funny
really
mission.
enjoyed the the um the missions where you would be in the construction zones and like the
Yeah.
dudes are just hanging and you had like 10 waves to just beat the hell out of everybody.
Oh yeah, those are super
And so
fun.
it lets you do the level of like where at the beginning you could go in and you could like stealth the first wave.
Yeah.
That's just a brawler. And I think those are
Yeah.
my favorite.
Those are
Um
really, really good. And they test your metal too, because you'd be like, oh,
oh
I gotta get out of here. I
yeah.
gotta get some distance.
And then
Uh
in the Miles Morales ones, it was like a weird traversal one where you had to run and jump and land and like you had to like flip pull up the
oh
thing
wow.
back down do that. It was just it got
So
really
hard.
frustrating, but once you got it down it was like, oh, I'm so much better than I was. Like it was literally like growing. Like I'm growing with Miles. He can do it, I can do it too,
Yeah.
so it made me
Yeah.
feel a lot better about it.
I also like that they have it built in that if you're running and if you're just running ahead and there's anything in your way, you just parkour.
Yeah.
Like you just parkour, cartwheel over it, front flip, whatever. I guess Peter parkour. I guess that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, getting all this stuff together, it was the ways for me. Similarly, I really really enjoyed racking up, that combo meter, trying not to get shot, dodging and webbing people in the face. I religiously will come into an area and be like, all right, there's 15 people here. That's 15 self takedowns. And then I'll mess up on the first one and be like, all right, it's all gone now. They're all coming. It's pedal to the metal, and now I've got to fight them all. They all know I got drones shooting at me from the sky. There's a bunch of stuff happening. But there's so many times I've gone into a room with well intentions, like, oh, strategic. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to have patience. And then I'll press the web button by accident. And they all turn towards me, and I'm like, oh, it's all or nothing now. So I really like that. And there's some times where you are rewarded for how stealthy you can be. There's some missions that are exclusively stealth.
Yeah.
And as a again our Arkham fan, like it's always great to just stand above. I love the like missions where you're like on a light pole and there's three people underneath you, and you have to distract each one so you could just yank them up and put them on the light pole. One, all right, two, you're just yanking them up. Really, really great stuff. And the aerial combos are also super fun. Being able to swing kick somebody to death just over and over again. Or you're fighting a group of people on a skyscraper and then you just punch one and he falls off the side, and then you'll see the animation where there's a quick webbing
Yeah.
of them being
Like
stuck.
in your punch, you put like a web wing so it whips back up to this so he doesn't fall to his death. Because
Yeah.
Spider-Man's that well. He's that so far ahead. He's Batman.
And if we were talking about Miles Morales, and obviously you can do this in the Spider-Man game as well, but the dive, bro. That's what if you're playing a Spider-Man game, you're looking for the tallest building in the city. You're running up that sucker, and then you're jumping off. I don't know why, if we have a death wish or what, but like it's so much fun to pick up momentum in that dive. Almost try to find the last minute when you can web up. And then you do it. You got this exhilaration. You come up, as you get to your apex of your swing, and then it's like the sun is there. It's like the perfect game. Like I said again, atmospherically, so beautiful. And prior to this game coming out, there's many times I popped the game in just to fight crime on the side, like just to
for sure.
Flip around and see what's going on, and then just hit somebody with a manhole cover. I love that everyone's like, "Oh, Batman, he breaks people's arms and asks them to talk." Spider-Man knocks people out. You know how many people I've hit with random trash cans and manhole covers? Like, they're not answering no questions after that, bro. It's over.
Or whenever you stealth them and he grabs them and he pulls them and they hit their face on the pole. It's like, yeah. And they're like, yep.
And then how does no one just a lifeless body
guy out? Yeah, then it's just
like lifeless body just hanging around.
Yeah, he might have lived, but he got an aneurysm. He ain't living long.
Yeah. No, he's not gonna say any full sentences anytime soon. Did you have anything else on Miles before we give our spoiler-free review of Marvel Spider-Man 2?
It's worth playing for anyone that second guesses it. It's don't count it out because it's short. It was a fun playthrough, and it definitely fleshes out Miles a little more.
Yeah, I think it helps. Then like we were talking about before, the emotional resonance kind of pick up. We also should say that while they tease a future for Mary Jane and Peter, and they also tease what the future could be for Miles and Peter, both knowing that they're Spider-Man. The other thing that they teased was that moment with Norman Osborn, if you want to tell the people, with Harry and the tube.
Oh, yes. So at the end, we see Norman in his secret lab in his penthouse that he has for some reason.
You gotta turn the portrait counterclockwise and
he's talking to a clearly Dr. Connors. For anyone that doesn't know, he's the Lizard. He's missing an arm. He's talking to Doc Connors. He looks at a tube and says, we'll have you fixed soon. And then you see the symbiote grab the side of the tube, and that's the end. That's how boom, done. And that's which definitely sets up 2.
I remember seeing articles like as late as a month ago going, Insomniac making controversial change to who's Venom or whatever the heck, and I was like, that was like 2018. Like, we all knew the story that they were setting up back there. Why are you trying to make it seem like it's a big reveal? So I've got less story knowledge than you. What would you tell the people who are on the fence about getting Marvel Spider-Man 2? And I guess just talk the best you can without spoilers.
Oh, man.
Why you think this game stands out?
So at first, I'm really coded. So at first, you start off very similar. Instead of fighting Fisk, you fought someone else.
Would you fight? Yeah. And I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, because I was almost going to say it, and then I was like, I thought you didn't say it because it was.
I'm avoiding all. I remember it was
Yeah,
hard. It was hard as hell for me because I was like, oh,
yeah,
I'm still used to doing it a different way, and they so like it's a slightly different, or maybe I'm just remember wrong. Control scheme. So
right.
like, and then they've now changed the dodge counter from was it triangle to
Yeah,
now it's like L1 to parry. And so there's a
yes,
level of understanding that I've still yet to perfect. I think
same.
I parried like four.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
button mashing, bro. I'm button mashing and
oh, for
dodging,
sure.
and it's telling me that the dodge won't work, and I'm still getting hit. But it's just muscle memory at this point. I'm
Yeah,
just pressing dodge and just pressing dodge.
I'm gonna take splash damage. I'm not taking full effect. You know,
Right, right,
um,
right.
I have just gotten to the point in the game. Well, it's not really a spoiler because it's part of the storyline where
Yeah,
Peter now has the symbiote suit on. I'm about
right.
30% of the way through the game.
Okay.
So I have definitely just been exploring, doing side missions. Um, at first, I didn't much care for the web wings, and then I
Yeah,
started playing with the web wings,
yeah.
and I think I like them more than web slinging. Um,
Yeah, I have a friend that said a similar thing. Like he rarely web slings now. Now he's just doing the web wings. And once you find like the wind tunnels and stuff, it
oh
really does elevate the whole process. And because you get cool things like that that are brand new to this game, but you're also integrating other things from the past games, like that slingshot maneuver where you can,
yes,
attach yourself to two things and pull back as hard as you can. So now you're creating a ice cream sundae. You're doing that, jumping up into the air, grabbing out your web wings, using web to
that's the
traverse
best.
around a corner, and then you're back on your web wings. It's again like I thought I could never get bored of web slinging normally in New York. Now we've opened up to other boroughs, and there's other ways of traversal. Like I'm taking 20 minutes to go across the city, but I'm having a blast.
And one of the most not talked about ways of traveling in the city, the
Mhm.
bicycle.
I haven't
I,
done the
I have
bicycle.
I have not done it yet myself, but someone was telling me that as Spider-Man, if you find a
Mhm.
bicycle, you can get on a bicycle and he'll just ride the bicycle. Like that's
That's
but
interesting.
I don't. I mean,
That,
I'll
just
never
that
do
visual. Right, right,
it.
right.
Yeah. But it's a really cool like. Oh, so you can traverse it as a pedestrian, as flying Spider-Man, or as regular Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The way the story is progressing is very interesting. Um, and I mean, it touches a nerve a little bit, and you're getting a lot of growth from both characters.
Right, right.
Which I really enjoy because it has two different versions of growth. I won't go further into it, but the growth of Peter probably excites me more because I've never seen a happy Peter Parker,
Got you. Yeah,
uh, and
yeah.
like at least not one that's truly like this is cool, and
Yeah,
like
right.
it kind of leans in that direction. Bear in mind, I'm only 30% of the way through the game, so
Right, right.
it could very much change. And then the version of Miles we're kind of comes off as being a little more focused on now, as opposed to like thinking about the grand scheme,
Yeah,
which does very much seem like Miles, the character we know, but he also feels
right.
he feels a little more angry.
Yeah,
But,
I can
but
say that. I think he's kind of sort of looking for his way in the world,
yeah,
while also trying to juggle his responsibilities as Spider-Man, while also knowing that there's somebody else kind of doing the job as well. I'll say real quick, there was that, Barbie came out, huge
yes.
cultural, phenomenon. And like for a while, all the women were calling each other Barbie, like, "Hey Barbie, hi Barbie," like how they do it in the thing. I love playing this game. They're like, "What are you doing, Spider Man?" "Well, Spider Man, I'm doing." I'm like, "That's so cool. I'm calling all my friends Spider Man now."
Have you done a crime or the other one shows up?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking, I'm like, "Oh, this is a little bit rough." I'm like, who's that? And then boom, my boy's right there. He's like, I was in town. I'm like,
And
this
they
is
do the
so
point thing.
cool.
They're like, "Hey," and they both point at each other, and they're like, "All right, see you later." And they
And
both,
you could do like team finishers
yeah.
and stuff like that. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Um, no, it's fun. It's very enjoyable so far. I would I'd love to do a full spoiler cast in a couple weeks if you're interested.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we're
Just blow it
taking
up.
this down.
I I'm 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 itching to for my kids to go to bed so I can get back on tonight. So like I think that's probably the best way I can sell it.
Ironically, I feel the same way, but I'm doing it like the worst, not the worst pace possible, but I'm like, I'm fooling myself because basically I'm like, oh, I can't wait to play the game. But then when I play the game, I'm like, I don't want to do anything in the story yet. I'm too scared. Like I don't want to waste this bottle of scotch. You know, this
Yeah.
very fine bottle of scotch. I'm literally trying to take sip by sip because I can have an amazing 3 hours if I just grind and get through the story mode, whatever. But I really don't want to let this go. Not yet. A dear friend of mine, Dan the Comic Book Man, who's done episodes of the podcast, he's completed it. He's done. He's 100%, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, man, I hope you enjoyed yourself. You know, I think that you still can. You know, you can grind it out and enjoy yourself that way. But I definitely need to savor this. And to be honest, and I know this is something that you share as well. I barely have the time. You know, I barely have the time as well. So I do like that when I do have that time, I get to
Mm.
spend it in that universe. Because come on, man. Again, I'm not afraid to say it. I was in an elevated state once playing this game, and I'm playing it, and I have this moment where I have this thought, and this is the thought. It is, I get sometimes too up my own web about this idea that because something is made for everyone, it can't be good because it has to please too many masters, or because something is made exceptionally niche that it has to be good because obviously it's all focused on one sort of thing. And I think one thing that breaks that logic is Spider-Man because Spider-Man's for everybody,
Hmm.
you know, and it's good. Just because it's popular, just because it's, you know, it's well known, just because it makes a bunch of money doesn't make it any less good. And it's because when done right, these Spider-Man iterations, these pieces of media, whether they're video games, comics, and stuff, they're done with a labor of love. And
Hmm.
most of the time, they're done by fans, people who have followed him somewhere, you know, and want to take him somewhere else, to take him somewhere next. And the idea that like you just talk about 30%, I'm probably like 18 maybe percent in. The fact that I'm at 18% in and they're asking the developers and they're like, yo, yeah, we're ready for the next game. Like, you know, the next game's gonna be
Yes.
even bigger. I'm like, what do you mean? I haven't cracked the surface on this one yet. And I'm having so much fun. It is, in my opinion, the truest definition of escapism. Like you want to talk about like stepping into another man's shoes, or his slippers or whatever he wears there. Yeah, man. You can't go wrong playing Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Oh, for sure.
Uh,
I everything I've heard, everyone says the lowest score I've seen is 8.5 out of 10, which is
wow.
it's really good. Like it's
And that guy was hungover when he played the
yeah,
game. He's like,
yeah.
why do I gotta flip so many times? This is bullshit.
Yeah, he just played Miles Morales and Spider-Man back to back. He's like, I gotta play this one too. Like, all right. Like,
Yeah, he was
uh,
over it. And
um,
it gives you a little recap. Like it
mhm.
gives you a little,
Ha-
hey, this is what happened in those last two games, which is really cool.
And have you unlocked the fast travel yet?
I haven't unlocked the fast travel yet. What I was going to
It,
ask you is, do you have a hard time keeping the story separate?
yes.
Yeah,
It does. Well, now that I'm starting to progress, it makes the story starting to make more sense. But at
yeah,
the beginning, it's definitely they're two individual. It's like it's almost like there's two lines, and they'll converge at times, but like only kind of. But now that
that's
I'm
where I'm at
starting
now. Yeah.
to converge, or now that I'm starting to progress further, you know, I've Craven starting to appear.
Okay. Yeah.
I my one curiosity is mainly because of the first game, is like,
Hmm.
is there a big bad? Like,
Yeah.
whereas
Bigger.
Craven very much like Martin Lee is like is Craven the Martin Lee, and do I have to fight a Doctor Octopus? Because you've
Yeah.
already kind of seen some of the Rogues Gallery, some of the ones that weren't featured in the previous games,
Right.
uh, and that's really cool. Like it's like, oh, like we're seeing the other people. Well,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
won't
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anybody. Um, like the very first, the intro fight. We're
Yeah, and when you do that intro fight, I'm like, why haven't they ever done this before?
yeah.
This seems like so obvious as to what you would do with this character.
Mhm.
Super cool, visually interesting, which is not what you wanted to be sometimes. A lot of these games are on rails. You're gonna press the same buttons to punch and dodge every person. So make it visually interesting. And I think they
Yes.
found a good way with some of these villains to do that.
Um, so yeah, the more I play, the more I find that I feel like it's going to come crashing down. And I have a few theories that I've written down. I won't spoil it. I'd hate to be right. Um,
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it would be really cool, but I'd be like, oh, that if I'm right, I'm gonna call it, but no one's gonna believe me.
Yeah.
That's it's a
I do that sometimes. Yeah, 100%.
like so. And if I'm right, I'll be the first one to be on the Facebook page blowing myself up because
Yes.
talking about how great I am,
All
how
the internet
smart
points,
I
bro.
am.
Yeah.
But if I don't get them right, you're not gonna hear nothing from me.
Nope.
So
Nope.
like, it's
It's like,
well,
it's like
everyone just
set it on fire. Well,
yeah.
those are gone.
But no, it's a lot of fun. Anyone that's even if you're thinking about it, just do it. Just do it. Save yourself, spoilers. Save yourself heartache. It's a little, I get it being a little pricey. It's the feel, hurts a little more to buy video games these days.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's worth it. I've probably put in 10 hours, and it's worth every minute.
Oh, 100%. And again, it's a labor of love from Insomniac. They put a lot of heart into this. They put a lot of work into this. They said that every bit of the game is on the disc. It's on the physical version, so you know that thing is packed. And I did notice, like I said, you're doing a bunch of stuff. Some of these missions take a bit longer, and then you look at your overall, and you're like, "What? I didn't even dent this thing. I didn't have even, we haven't even got anywhere in this." So this is it got me super excited. And one of the things I have to believe coming before Spider-Man 3 or Marvel Spider-Man 3 would be Wolverine. That's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Insomniac's Wolverine. And I believe it's in the same universe, which would be incredibly interesting if it
Oh yeah.
is. And could you imagine those mechanics with Wolverine? Like
I just think
yeah.
of Wolverine web slinging. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, right?
like
And then he's accidentally cutting them because his hands are sticking out the wrong ways.
yeah.
I'll never get the hang of this.
But no, so one of my so again, I just unlocked the symbiote suit. One of my, how you web people up?
Hmm.
One of the coolest parts of it is with the symbiote suit, the web is now black. And
All right. Yeah, yeah,
just a
yeah.
small, subtle detail that doesn't matter to anyone. I saw that and I was just like, oh, it makes so yeah, it's worth it. You got
Right.
everyone.
I remember when I first saw the Venom in the animated series and he shot it from the top of his hand. He
Mm-hmm.
shot the web and then he would grab it as opposed to underneath and grab it. And I was like, that's a thing? Like, wait a minute, you can do that? I'm super excited. And I have to believe that this whole symbiote Venom thing is going to be better than Spider-Man 3's version of events.
Oh,
I've got
it
to
can only be.
I've got to believe. I like that this game plays with time. You literally
Mm-hmm.
play in certain moments that are done in the past. And yeah, everyone is incredibly fleshed out right now because I've started so early. They do seem like two different stories at the moment, but I gotta believe they converge somehow. And I know from stuff that they've released and stuff like that, it does get to a point, as we know. If we know that Peter gets the symbiote, we know classically that that's not a good thing for Peter. He may think it's good initially, but it's not a good thing
Yeah.
for Peter. And in other cases, he's usually the one that has to come to that conclusion and sort of, change his mind. But
Yeah.
signs point to us having to be Miles and us having to put that rabid dog down, and that is something that I am not ready for yet. That sort of mentor mentee situation, very similar to the Ox stuff,
Mm-hmm.
turning. But they're setting it up, and I'm at the dinner table, bro. Keep bringing me plates because this stuff is great.
I'm with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I will say that um similarly, if you're on the fence about this, I think even maybe the first game is like PlayStation Plus at this point. Who knows? Because they
I
keep changing what even that is.
I
you
know
know?
Miles Morales is.
Yeah, so take a dive, take a leap of faith, if you will,
Exactly.
and yeah, get in on all things Marvel's Spider-Man. I hope they make 300
I'm down.
versions of this game. I hope there's 300 sequels. But one thing I do know that there's 300 of is episodes of the Major Issues podcast. And the Major Issues podcast is available wherever podcasts are found. That's Podbean, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, the Apple Podcast app, TuneFind, YouTube, Spotify, and more. The quickest way to find us is Google Major Issues Podcast, and we'll be the first ones to pop right up. But if you don't want to go through all of that and you want one location where you can find every single episode of the podcast, regardless of what kind of phone you have or any of that kind of stuff, go to comicbookclique.com. That's where every episode of the Major Issues podcast lives. That's over 300 episodes, which is close to over 600 hours of content. So go in there, go for the deep dive, check out all the stuff that we got. We've covered every single comic book movie that had a theatrical release since 2017. And even going back and tackling some of those older ones, which is absolutely hilarious. We've got to get you back on, Asa, to cover some stuff. The schedule will be coming out soon for this quarter. We've got some interesting things on there, some interesting anniversaries, things like Mask of the Phantasm turns 30 this year. We got some classics in there, so that's going to be pretty interesting. So I can't wait to tackle all that stuff. You can find also at comicbookclique.com our merchandise store where you can buy exclusive merchandise designed by me, and we get a kickback for everything purchased. So that's one of the ways that you can help support us. An additional way, if you hit that support Comic Book Clique button at comicbookclique.com, it'll take you to our Patreon. And for as little as 10 cents a day, $3 a month, you can help us keep the lights on here and afford the hardware and the software we need to keep producing content for your charge like we've been doing for you guys. So consider doing it that way. Money's tight though across the board. So if you don't have the bread, consider telling a friend to tell a friend about the podcast. Word of mouth is how this podcast grows. And not only can you help influence somebody and get them on board with the clique, but we can get on this bandwagon before it becomes full. Because I've been to the future where we do become the latest and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media, but I can't tell you how we do it because it'd mess up the timeline. The next thing you know, Dwayne Johnson's playing Mary Jane, and no one wants that. So make sure that you guys are following us wherever we are, which is facebook.com/comicbookclique, Instagram at comicbookclique. We use the hashtag comicbookclique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. We're at Major Issue CBC on Twitter. We're also at Major Issue CBC on Twitch. I'm thinking of continuing my side mission quest, and then when I'm ready to get back into the rest of the story, possibly streaming. So you can see some of my, I had a lot of fun streaming The Last of Us because there's so many twists and turns. I had never played it. I hadn't gotten it spoiled for me or any of that kind of stuff. So when some of that early stuff started happening where people started getting shot in the head, I'm like, what am I playing? So I can't wait to get on Marvel Spider-Man 2 and Twitch on there. So make sure that you guys are following us all there. You don't necessarily have to say anything, but is there any pitches you want to give out there? Your Twitch, any sort of thing?
I don't do anything. Like I'm gonna be on here more. I'm gonna be on here more, and then once I get a little more online famous, I'll start streaming. My wife tells me I could be really funny sometimes. Typically, I drink and I cuss, and I'm hilarious. So here we go.
And also, as we start to flesh out and cross the T's and dot the I's over here at Comic Book Clique, we could possibly even do like Avengers missions in Avengers together and stream that as part of Comic Book Clique. See how well we do as Earth's Mightiest Heroes against a bunch of aimbots. Yeah, follow us wherever we're going because we're going to the top. And we'll continue to provide content like this each and every week. But my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
I'm Asa Griffith. I forgot my name.
And all right. Well, that's All-Star Asa.
Here we go. That's the one.
And this has been our Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales recap and review. And remember, whether you're a friendly neighborhood hero, an 8-legged mad scientist, find yourself being a bit negative, or just looking for that leap of faith yourself, remember that we are the Clique, but always remember that you, yes, you, are worthy.